Hello and welcome once again to
Happy
Crazy Comics.
New Year!
Joe, that was almost 2 weeks ago
but
now.
for our listeners, this is the first podcast we recorded in the new year, even though it's the second one they'll have gotten, because they'll have gotten the one that we recorded last year that just dropped this year, as opposed to the one we just started recording this year that will show up later this year.
You made my brain hurt.
All right. My one resolution, 2016 done. Make Cory's brain hurt. Cross off. Good.
It's me, you're charming and delightful.
Great year
Old
so
Uncle
far.
Rat Bastard.
He is a rat bastard at that. A gallbladderless rat bastard, I will go as to suffice to say. How you doing so far? How's the recovery?
And at the other end of the series of tubes and wires we call the internet.
Oh, he's back to his old form. Woo!
Is Joe, crazy writer who won't let me get through the intro. How you doing today, Joe?
Well, if I'd have known that, I would have taken your gallbladder out myself.
Don't worry, within 5 minutes I'll be back to being goody two-shoes.
I doubt that. I've seen those shoes.
My shoes are
I know
awesome.
that has pink shoes.
They're Chucks. Well, actually, they're actually better than Chucks because they're made from a company that gives all their profits to charity. And yeah, I'm a goody two-shoes.
Okay.
And how are you doing today? How you doing?
I am sore. But I'll get into that in freaking.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking physically sore, not mentally sore.
Well, that's good. It was Box Day.
Yes.
On Saturday, no less. I come home.
Well, it almost had to be because they weren't delivering on Friday.
I come home.
It was New Year's.
Second day of the year. Big old box of comics sitting right there on my desk.
Monday now, and it'll be next Monday, so that'll be almost a week and a half from Box Day. 3 days from getting the box. Oh, now my brain hurts.
See, that's why we don't talk time.
It's not good. It's all wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey.
Time? Yeah, it's all time travel-y stuff. But it's a new year. We got new comics, and there's going to be some changes to this year podcast.
What?
I know. We've made some small changes. We've changed the email address to solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. We've brought in guest stars more often. But we're going to be reviewing comics every week. We are hooked in with the network where we will be sent preview comics or comics that came out a few months ago where they're asking us to review books. And if you would like us to review your comic, go ahead, email us at solitairerosenetwork@gmail.com. We are moving on up in the world, and we're going to have a new segment starting very soon that will drop, maybe 2-3 times a month.
Cool. What's that called?
I haven't even told you about it.
You haven't?
No, it's about anime, manga, and conventions.
Oh, kind of like the MCBA Comic-Con 2016, which will be May 14th and 15th, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Saturday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Sunday at the Minnesota State Fair Grandstand. Advanced tickets are now on sale. They started on January 1st. Go to www.mcbacomiccons.com. And, of course, over 100,000 square feet of comic book action, over 250 creators, both national and local. And, of course, us here at Solitaire Rose Network are the official, unofficial, or is it the unofficial, official podcasters of the con, because we'll be there conning and
we're
podcasting.
Big time.
We are big. We got the connections. Oh, by the way, if you got a whole pile of comics you want us to review, you can also drop them off at the con if you want to wait till May 14th and 15th, or you can probably email Cory and get his address. He'll send it to him.
And we don't even take bribes. We just review the comics.
Oh, hell yeah. But before, what was that? Anime, manga, and conventions?
Yes. Lyndon, who was part of our FallCon episode, and I interviewed back on Solitaire Rose Radio.
I want to butt in once.
Sure.
okay, I lie. I want to butt in lots of times. But this time, I just want people to know we recorded a lot of stuff at the con. And if you didn't hear your particular interview, it's not because we don't like you. It's because we were learning. And it might have been that your particular segment didn't turn out right because of the way we set up the microphone or the computer software, or more likely there was somebody screaming, Lisa, I'm looking at you, in the background that made your comments unintelligible. So again, if we didn't get to your stuff, it's not you. Definitely stop by at FallCon. I'm sorry.
SpringCon.
No, MSP Comic Con. Yes, stop by.
I don't know.
Hell, even if we talk to you at FallCon, we'll talk to you again. There's got to be something new going on.
But Lyndon Palmer's going to be sitting down with me a few times a month for about 10, 15 minutes, and I will get educated on what's going on in anime, manga, and conventions.
Oh, that should be cool.
So I think that will expand what we talk about. So there are two new things already.
I look forward to that. I know every so often when I had Hot Comics, you'd say, oh, Joe, you got to try this series. And it would be like some manga series that I totally missed. The big one comes to mind is Battle Royale. You told me about that one, and man,
yeah.
Did I snap up on that.
That one was really good. Lyndon is much more keyed into what's going on with that, so can't wait to sit down and hash that stuff out. We are expanding. We're growing. Oh, and by the way, Joe, today is Monday, right?
No, we're not going over that. I don't want to go back.
You know what's going to be dropping tomorrow? Something from the far pre-podcast past is coming back. Some old thing I used to do is been resurrected and changed for the podcast world.
I thought you couldn't talk about that since the incident.
No, this is a different thing.
Oh, thank God.
Joe, do you remember when I used to do the weekly news update?
Absolutely loved it. There were times Cory had sent out these brilliant emails talking about current events, much in the way that like Jon Stewart would, much like Saturday Night Live would. But the funny thing is most of actually all the items, there were several times I and other people would email Cory and say, is this for real? And it was. There were just things that the main media didn't catch on that picked up on the solitaire Rose internet web of spies. And I always thought that compared to some of the crap I saw on television, you really should have been out there more. I could have seen you fitting in with Jon Stewart or, again, like Saturday Night Live or any of the Fox, F-A-U-X, not F-O-X, news sites. But no, I'm happy to hear that come back.
Yes, it's going to be starting up as a podcast. You could go to it, and I will drop in the promo right here. This is the Weekly News Update. I am Cory Strode, and I will ignore the fact that it's been over a decade since I've written one of these. However, I do promise far fewer George Bush stories than when we last signed off. The Weekly News Update is available at weeklynewsupdate.solitairerose.com, part of the Solitaire Rose Network. Wait, we're a real network? Does that mean we have to be professional? Oh, Lord. Because I still have to set up the website and everything.
Okay.
But it'll be a short 10 to 15 minute podcast where I make fun of what is going on in the world. Please subscribe, go to your iTunes, go to your Stitcher, go to that German website that gives us the 300 hits every time I drop a new episode. To subscribe. It's going to be fun. Someone today even kind of emailed me with an idea for a podcast that I kind of am scratching my head going,
Did you look at him and say, you do it and I'll host it?
Actually, it was more, we might just be sitting down with I might be sitting down with somebody and we might do it together with some other podcast network. It might be a crossover.
Am I going to get jealous here? Am I getting sidelined? Is that one of
No,
your
it'd
goals
be
for
a separate one.
2016 to replace me?
And it's not about comics.
Oh, I'm probably not interested.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, what?
What I could hear Chris say something in the background, but I couldn't hear what it was.
Her goal is to replace me in 2016. I suppose you could trade me in for a Cuisinart. That'd be much more entertaining.
She's got a bunny already. What more does she want? Should I make the Jackrabbit dildo joke or not? Let's move on.
Let's move on.
So it's after Christmas, after New Year's. We're now to the kind of the winter, the winter of our discontent, as it were. But we got Box Day, we got other stuff, and we got a comic to review.
He does.
Yes, Joe. We were sent the trade paperback of a comic that actually is also coming out monthly. It's called Six Gun Gorilla.
And with a title like that, you knew Cory was going to put it at the top of the review list.
Well, of course. Everybody likes gorillas. It's an ape world.
If it worked for DC Comics, it's going to work for us.
Why, yes, it is. Let's see. I'm going to pull it up here on the interwebs.
I've already got mine up because I'm going to tell you, we got 3 things to review. And when I looked at it, I started with Six Gun Gorilla number 6. And it was kind of interesting at the name of the title, Six Gun Gorilla, Long Days of Vengeance. And it's Brian Kriskow and Adrian Sebar. I've got the names right. And then, you know me, I usually don't. So I read it. It's from Two-Fisted Comics. I read issue number 6. And as I read it, the first thing that happened is I didn't realize I was reading issue 6. I thought I was reading an issue number 1. And, of course, it starts out, how could you not love a gorilla with a Gatling gun? I mean, come on. But it's got fast action. It was well drawn. The art did not interfere with the storytelling or the pacing. I didn't have to stop, go back, figure out, okay, who's talking, what happened with the action, things went out of sequence or out of alignment. The panel art was in normal panel order, so they weren't trying to get weird or anything. I did find the characters defined enough so that I knew who was talking, or didn't quite know who they are or what their motivations were, but it didn't interfere with the story. It gave me more questions than answers. And I'm thinking, yeah, I would buy this and pick up early issues. Then I opened up the second one, realized I had the graphic novel, which I don't know what it is, issue 1 through 5, 1 through 6. So for me, to jump in a story at issue 6 and be able to enjoy it, follow along with it, and want to continue to know what's going on it, that says something about the comic, the writing, and the art, versus like, okay, I'm starting at the beginning and I know what's going on. I just jumped in. So you could jump in almost anywhere in this here saga of the Six Gun Gorilla and enjoy it. But I recommend grabbing the graphic novel like I did after that. How about you, Cory? Did you read the graphic novel before the comic, or how did you?
Yes, I did read the graphic novel first. It's Six Gun Gorilla, Long Days of Vengeance. And I've got it up here on my screen. It is by Brian, I will mispronounce the name.
That's okay, I did already.
Kriskow and Adrian Sebar. It is a Western. And the Volume 1, Once Upon a Time in the West, one of my favorite movies, and probably the greatest spaghetti Western ever made. This book actually felt a lot like a spaghetti Western in a lot of ways. It has the themes of vengeance. It has a lot of
gorillas,
violence. The villains are it's not black hat, white hat. It's more black hat, kind of gray hat.
You saw right on the title page, it says it's inspired by the story Six Gun Gorilla, serialized in Wizard magazine in 1939 by person or persons unknown.
As I read through it, the reprint of the first issue was a little rough, but the art continuously got better as I went through the book, to the point where by about issue 3, It reminded me a lot of the art of Alex Nino and the other Filipino artists who had come to work in American comics in the 70s in like the Warren magazines, in DC's horror magazines, in some of Marvel's more experimental stuff. And also it was that style that Keith Giffen used in the mid 90s, that very light pen line that's more outline than actual hard art. But the thing that really helped it was the coloring. Uses a limited palette. It never overwhelms the art, and it gives it almost that sepia tone feel that the spaghetti westerns always wanted to try for. There were a few instances where the pacing was off, where it would be a flashback, but you wouldn't realize it would be a flashback until it would switch over to later in the story and back and forth. And that threw me off, and it made me think that they should have had some narrative caption to sort of ease you into the fact that this is a flashback and then ease you back out of it. You can do cinematic tricks in film to signify this, but in this, it really, you had to figure it out by how the story was written. So there was a couple of times where I'm reading and then I had to go back a couple pages and kind of figure out it was a flashback. The other thing that it didn't throw me out of the story, but I kind of went, oh, come on. I was very glad that as I read, this was not like a DC gorilla where the gorillas are smart and could talk and basically they're just human beings shaped like a gorilla. This gorilla was a gorilla, but they did put in that he could read and he was really smart and stuff like that. So that it didn't throw me out of the story, but it did kind of add a layer of unreality that I really didn't think the story needed. I think it would have been better if the lead gorilla,
which is a sentence you probably won't hear too often in any media,
other than comics, would have been better if it would have been, well, the gorilla acted like a gorilla and maybe was a little smarter, but not, super genius, Sherlock Holmes level smart. All in all, I really enjoyed it. And it's got a Facebook page. The Long Days of Vengeance is available on Comixology and on Amazon. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really well done. And one of the things I find interesting is that, yes, Six Gun Gorilla is a public domain character, and they're not lying about the fact that this character has been around for a long time. So there are actually 2 Six Gun Gorillas. I have not read the other one. I have just read this one.
Because they didn't send us their review copy.
That's right. So, Six Gun Gorilla, Long Days of Vengeance. Joe, do you give it a buy, borrow, or ignore?
I would definitely buy.
I give it a buy as well. And with your box day, what was the coolest thing you got in your box for box day?
I didn't, it was kind of a low-key box day. I didn't get a lot of cool graphic novels. I did get the Dark Knight collected edition thing, and it is a nice format. I think it'll look really cool when you get all 8 of them together. Of course, inevitably there'll be a collected hardcover and whatever goodies you have. So, if people are waiting for that, I guess I can understand that. I did get a lot of image firsts, which I'm real excited about because I think as we go on, I'll probably look and review some of these as well because, it's a chance to try some of these titles that I might not have grabbed the first time around. And I think it's a good idea, especially with and I never thought I'd be saying this, a diverse line as Image. To be able to try one of these without laying out a lot of money, and also, if I like it, great. If I didn't like it, I'm only out $1.
Yeah.
How about you? What did you find that got you all excited?
Well, I am going to talk about it more when we get to geeking. First off, I guess the end of the year, Archie decided to just dump all sorts of their digests on the market. I have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the Archie digests that came out in December that were in my box.
Mm-hmm.
A 1,000-page one, a giant one, which is usually one that runs about 400 to 500 pages. 2 of the jumbo digests that usually run about 300 to 400 pages, and then the winter annual, which usually runs about 300 pages. And I added the cost of them all up, and with the discount from DCBS, I've got 1,500 pages of Archie comics that I got for around $12.
So what you're telling me is you're going to be eating a lot of cheese so you can sit down on your happy place and read Archie.
Nope, I don't need to do that. I just thought it was fascinating that all of them came out in December, because normally you get like 1 or 2 a month. But nope, boom, here you go.
That makes end of year. Is Archie publicly owned?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I thought maybe it'd make the stockholders happy, but I guess they got no one to make happy but themselves.
And then I got a book that I had heard about for a while, and I had one of those I talked about where some months there are a whole bunch of hardcovers that I want to get, and some months there are next to none.
Mm-hmm.
I guess when I ordered it, it was one of those months where there was next to none. Drawn and Quarterly is reprinting the work of John Stanley. Now, Joe, do you know who John Stanley is?
No.
John Stanley was the artist-writer who did comics such as Little Lulu, which Dark Horse reprinted in full in paperbacks, and I have all of those. He also did the comic book of the comic strip Nancy, which I always liked those, while the Nancy comic strip was... I understand why people like it, and I like it at one level, but it's not something I go out of my way for. But the comic book I did, and I found out later it's because John Stanley did it. But he also did another series that I had not seen because it stopped publication before I was born and was not reprinted, and it's 13 going on 18. And it's about a young girl, not a little kid, but more like they're called tweeners now. And sort of, first getting interested in boys and makeup and all of that. And it has that same feel as the Little Lulu and the Nancy, to where John Stanley can create these wonderful stories around children that children can enjoy. Because I loved that stuff when I was a kid, but now when I read it, it's got kind of a nostalgic glow. But the stories are very clever and very innovative and just beautifully drawn. And I've picked up a number of the books in the John Stanley library, and this is one I didn't have because I didn't know about the series. But I have not had a chance to crack it open yet, but as I flip through it, it's a very different art style. And Drawn and Quarterly's books in this library are beautiful. The covers are these cloth-bound covers. It doesn't have a dust cover. It's just a cloth cover. The printing is wonderful, and they're designed by the artist Seth, who does Palookaville is the series, but he's done the graphic novel It's a Good Life If You Don't Weaken, Clyde's Fans, Wimbledon Green. So it looks amazing. Seth is also involved in the packaging and design of the Fantagraphics Peanuts books. He does the design for those. So not only is it really fun reading, but they're just beautiful, beautiful books. And we live in this golden era of reprints. So I was really happy to get that. And then I got 4, count them, 4 Tomorrow's magazines, including the new issue of Alter Ego, which had 2 really long interviews with Roy Thomas about a period he's never talked about, his work in comics in the late 80s and early 90s. And what I liked about those interviews, have you read that alter ego issue,
Nope,
Joe?
not yet. I'm way behind on my alter ego.
What I really liked about it was Roy talked about it as a businessman, because he'd been in comics forever. He's left the fandom behind, and by the late 80s, early 90s, he was a businessman. And he talks about how he came back to Marvel, and in order to kind of spend his time in the doghouse, they put him in the New Universe. So he had to write New Universe books before they brought him into Marvel proper.
That'll teach you for going away.
But he also talks about how some of his comics he put together because he was able to get a media deal. Like Captain Thunder and Blue Bolt, which was a father-son superhero team that was published through Heroic Publishing. Basically, he started it and he got a movie offer. So he kept doing stories because the movie offer. Or the alter ego, the story of how that comic series came about is really kind of odd and twisted, and it shows how you could hook up with an editor at a publisher, and then when that editor moves away and a new editor comes on, the new editor might not like what you're doing, but because you have a contract, you're kind of locked into it. He talks about his Marvel work, and Joe, you and I have talked quite a lot about the Fantastic Four Unlimited run by him and Herb Trimpe.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about it too, and he basically lets us know that we were right all along, that Herb Trimpe started drawing in that Liefeld style because he was told by an editor at Marvel, your stuff just looks too old. You gotta make your stuff look new. You gotta make your stuff look exciting. And Herb Trimpe went out and he bought a bunch of Image books, and then he brought in pages drawn like what he'd seen in that. I haven't read any of the other ones yet because I last week was it was not good. It was not a good week, but it was nice. I got a lot of comic reading done. I got the new previews catalog, and I'm flipping through that. Not finding a lot that is.
There was one thing in the previews catalog that I thought was kind of interesting, and it was IDW's doing a 5-issue event called Divergence. And what they're doing is they're taking storylines from their licensed properties and doing a what-if scenario. Not all of them struck me. One of them my wife found more interesting than I did. The two that I thought were interesting were there was Ghostbusters. What if they didn't cross the streams? What if the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man won? And you got to wonder about the cover, because as you're looking at it, there's our Ghostbusters sitting in their Ghostbuster uniforms on a park bench looking dejected. Meanwhile, in the distance, on top of one of the many buildings, is the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man looking equally despondent with his big foamy hand and his marshmallow-like cheek, looking very down. So you're kind of thinking, okay, this looks interesting. The other one's more, if you're a Transformer fan, if you remember, and I don't think this is a spoiler by any means of the issue, but the Transformer movie, they killed off Optimus Prime. Don't worry, he got better. Well, their story goes from that point. What if Prime didn't die? If you remember anything on the movie, his death is what got the Rodimus Prime to rise, which allowed them to defeat Unicron. Hey, come on, I didn't fall asleep when you're talking about your stuff. Anyways, they're doing X-Files, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and there's one other one. I don't have my previews with me. I thought that was kind of an interesting idea. We've seen it before. We saw Dark Horse do it with some of the Star Wars stories. And, of course, Marvel with What If, Elseworlds with DC. So, again, I thought the two were interesting. My wife thought the X-Files one is interesting. And the basis of that story is apparently Samantha Mulder is working to try to figure out what happened to her brother, Fox Mulder, who was abducted while they were kids. And that's kind of a turnaround if you know anything about X-Files. So, again, just one-issues, one-shots. I don't know if they'll republish it in a big book. I know they've done this before. They did an Infestation where they had the zombies running amok through all the licensed titles. So, again, out of 5 of them, 2 of them I'm excited for. One, my wife is excited about. The other 2, I think, I don't remember. I remember one is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I don't remember what the next one is. So I thought that was kind of interesting twist. Did you read the Avenger crossover coming this summer?
I have read a little about it. I do think it's interesting. Now, here's where we get to the core of the podcast, Joe. DC has now had, since the New 52, 2 big crossover events, right?
Yeah.
They had Forever Evil and Convergence.
I don't know if I'd call Convergence big, but it was an event.
Oh, Convergence had to be big. I mean, it replaced their entire line for 2 months. And they really pushed it hard. And I can't think of anything that came out of Forever Evil that made a difference.
Only if you're reading the Justice League book, because what it did, it allowed Lex Luthor to, A, he knows who Batman is, and B, he kind of ingrained himself into the Justice League because he says, hey, there's something big coming, because that's why the crime syndicate left their Earth, and that's what leading into the current Darkseid anti-Monitor war. But if you're not reading that book, and I'm serious, that book, it really has nothing to do with anything else.
And Convergence, we'll probably talk about this in the coming weeks. Convergence seems to have hurt DC a lot.
Yeah, publishing-wise. The 2 issues that make Convergence, how many issues was Convergence anyways?
It was an 8-issue miniseries, and then a whole bunch of 2-issue miniseries that tied into it.
Skip the 2-issue miniseries, because I have a feeling you're going to find those in quarter boxes at places like MSP Comic-Con 2016, May 14th and 15th. The 8-issue series I thought was significant just because they said, okay, the multiverse is back. And in this month's previews, I believe Action Comics number 50, they tease a meeting between the current Superman and the pre-crisis Superman, which is probably the only way I'd buy Action again. I'm still on the fence about whether I want to drop money and get that or just, sneak over to my local comic store and read it on the shelf.
What did John Byrne used to call that? John Byrne used to have a name for that, and he would bitch about people doing it. Shelf stealing or...
Shelf stealing.
I think it was shelf stealing.
That's funny.
Where Byrne used to talk about how he had the, quote, faithful 50, unquote. When he came onto a book, sales would go up by 50,000. And then after he boofed his Avengers run and went over to Dark Horse because he'd pissed off the editors of both Marvel and DC by leaving in the middle of storylines, he did Next Men. Next Men. And when he came back, his name didn't goose sales anymore. And I think it was more because comic fans were like, oh, yeah, it's that John Byrne guy. He's going to start a story and then wander off after he – and his art – I'm sorry, guys. His art took a huge nosedive once he figured out how to use the computer. Because Jin has talked in past episodes about how artists will, like, grab a drawing in Photoshop and repurpose the drawing a few times. Byrne actually would talk about in interviews how he had standard stock poses that he would drop in to save time. And I love how he always said, and people don't notice. It's like, no, we notice. We notice. We notice that whenever a character is standing, blah, 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 looks exactly the same, no matter whether it's the Vision or Iron Man or Captain America. We know. Okay, we know. But he would start saying, well, I still have the readers. They're just shelf stealing. They're going into the shop and they're reading the book on the shelf and putting it back. Well, we have libraries now, so you can check it out of the library. Oh, yeah. But Brian Hibbs, who does a column for Comic Book Resources, and is really just about the only thing at Comic Book Resources worth reading anymore, talked about how Convergence killed his DC sales. Before going into the New 52, he was a DC-heavy store. And the New 52 really gave him a huge sales bump. And then Forever Evil kind of did okay, which he was a little concerned about. But with Convergence, it was almost like it became the dead stop. And his DC sales dropped afterward. And he's got stacks of the Convergence books on the shelf, and he ordered conservatively on them. But he also talks about how Marvel at Secret Wars, once Secret Wars started being late and all the miniseries were over, bam, those sales just hit a wall too. But what I wanted to ask is, Marvel's gearing up for their next events. They've got an X-Men event and an Avengers event. And I'm kind of excited about them because they're interesting and they kind of tie in with the movies. And Avengers is going to have kind of a group tie-in, but there's also going to be Civil War 2 for the Captain America Civil War movie. And in the X-Men, despite all the people saying, oh, they won't do anything for the X-Men movie, they're doing another Age of Apocalypse crossover. And Marvel's events we kind of get excited about, but DC's events, they've done too, and I don't think I could possibly give less of a shit.
Well, I will tell you.
What is the difference between the two?
I will tell you, I don't give a shit about Marvel's events. And I am a big Marvel event guy. And it's not because of Secret Wars, but it's just, and I've alluded to it in the past, and I'm definitely going to be elaborating on it. They got too many frickin' X-Men and Avenger titles. I don't care about that one. The Avengers I want to watch, the X-Men I care about are diffused across all these multiple titles. I don't give a rat's ass. And you're all starting them at number one. The only Avenger title I care about has Mark Waid writing it. And the reason I started this and asked you about this crossover is because I haven't heard hide nor hair about it. And I'm usually pretty savvy on, hey, this is coming up. I'm kind of excited about it. Hell, I even liked Fear itself. I thought that was kind of fun, although it kind of died afterwards.
Yeah,
but I have
it didn't have a grand finale. It had a grand.
Yep. And I don't have any idea what's going on in Avengers. I stupidly ordered the premiere issue from the month before. That was in last month's preview, thinking, well, it's going to be an event. I usually like events. I should order it. Part of me was thinking, maybe I shouldn't pre-order it. Maybe I'll just wait till the hype comes up because, we've got decent comic shops in town. I can go pick up an issue I missed. And now that the next part of it's coming up and it's like, oh, they're crossing over into these books. They're books I really don't care about. And much as I love Mark Waid, his Avengers didn't really sing to me. And now that it's going to be part of a crossover, to me it's like, hey, this is a good point to just drop it. I'm not collecting any Avenger books. X-Men, again, same thing. I'm like, okay, you're starting me off on a bunch of books I don't buy. I don't feel I should buy. Maybe later I'll read it on Marvel Unlimited. Or maybe I'll buy the graphic novel if it's that big and people are hyping all about it. But I could possibly care less. I don't know if it's because everything started at number one or more likely, like I said, I have in my mind, a set of who the X-Men are. And when you spread them across multiple books. Same thing with the Avengers. I don't care anymore. You're not going to make me buy 5, 6, 7, 8 X-Men / Avenger titles just to feel like I'm in the group. You didn't grow these out organically the way Bendis did when he canceled Avengers and then he got the new Avengers and then the Mighty Avengers and then the Dark Avengers. And I felt like I had to read what was going on because they all grew from each other. They're just, boom, here's a bunch of X-Men number ones. Here's a bunch of Avengers number ones. Ooh, number ones. And let's all get excited about it. Nope. This to me is a big dropping off point.
I think the other problem, and I'm having trouble getting into them as well, is that with the last batch of Avengers books, each team had a specific reason for being around. The Uncanny Avengers, that was this group that was to try and calm down the anti-mutant hysteria. It's nope, we're going to have Avengers and we're going to have mutants and they're going to be working together, showing that we can work together. With the two Hickman Avengers books, one was sort of the we take care of what's on Earth, and the others were we are the Illuminati dealing with this big universe-changing stuff.
And boy, did they crunch together.
My problem with the Avengers books now is I look at them and I go, okay, these are interesting teams, but I don't know why they exist. Kind of like how at Marvel at the 90s, not 90s, in the 70s. Joe, do you remember the book The Champions?
Only because our good buddy, didn't Byrne do some of it?
Byrne did some of it. It was created by Tony Isabella. Don Heck drew some issues. I have the trade paperbacks.
I remember it because it was they wrapped up the storyline in
Spectacular Spider-Man.
Spectacular Spider-Man, and that was big Spider-Man. That was the first Marvel I did. Knowing of that, I thought, I'll go back and pick them up because Marvel had, their universe was integrated. They cared about the past, and it made me feel, I don't know, real cool that, hey, I know what they're talking about because I went back and picked up the Champion issues and sold them and picked them up again and sold them. I mean, they went up and down in price because John Byrne's doing it. Okay, no, he's not doing it. Ghost Rider's hot. No.
That was the problem I had with the book. Here's the team lineup. Ghost Rider, Hercules, Black Widow, Angel, Iceman. What is the thread that ties all of them together? There's nothing. Tony Isabella talked about how he had pitched a book with Iceman and Angel as former X-Men, kind of traveling across America, figuring out who they are now that they're not part of the X-Men. But the editor-in-chief said, no. If you're going to do a team book, you need to have a character with his own book. You need to have somebody who's super strong. You need to have a female. And, you can have these two X-Men too. And when you read the book, it just feels like, well, these characters really have nothing to do. There's no reason for them to be together. Now, granted, all I have read of the new Avengers stuff is that kind of Avengers #0, the one-shot thing. But does it feel like they have a reason to be together?
And there was no big wow moment. I mean, the pre-Hickman run of Avengers, if I recall right, it was the first issue, Kang shows up. And he gives these boys, you guys have a reason, why should we trust you? And then he shows them something, and Stark breaks down and goes, oh my God, where did you get that? It was a weapon he had thought of, but never put to paper, never made, never designed, and Kang brought it back because we have to do something about your children fighting Ultron in the future. And you're like, oh my, this was just amazing. I mean, you're like, holy cow, you just shot me with both barrels and I'm ready to go on to the next issue. And it was as exciting and it kept you going. The current one, I don't know. I kind of looked at the Ultimate Avengers, if it's even called that. All I remember is Galactus is in it. And I kind of like, oh, Galactus, he's always good for a good story. Well, maybe.
And it's the same with the X-Men. I still want to read about the original X-Men in modern times. I like that. I love that Bendis did it. And I actually really, really like that they've left them.
Well, yeah, and they got Old Man Logan there. That perked my interest up tremendously.
And time is still broken. But all the rest of the X-Men books, it's okay. Why do they... You need to have a reason for this team to exist. The X-Men, the original X-Men that I liked, not the original X-Men, but the new X-Men, you'd have that box on the splash page. Hunted and feared by a world they are sworn to protect. Or the Avengers. There came a day when there was a menace too much for individual heroes to fight. These heroes came to... I always see the Avengers in the Marvel Universe and the JLA and the DC universes. This is like the power team. When shit goes down, these are the people who go and take care of it.
Now they're a bunch of pikers.
Well, now it's a whole bunch of teams all calling themselves the Avengers. And I understand why they have to do it, but it's too bad you can't have, okay, in the 70s, these are the Avengers. They're this team. Here are the Defenders. They're this team. The Avengers fight these people. The Defenders fight these people. Oh, these are the champions. They're going to fight these people. These are the X-Men. They're going to fight these people. Each team had a reason. And now it's just, all these teams of superheroes are either Avengers or X-Men. There are no other teams.
Now, I will tell you, there is one part in the Marvel Universe that I'm really enjoying.
Spider-Man.
I'm sorry, my printer just took off.
Spider-Man.
No, I am enjoying Spider-Man. I am enjoying Iron Man, although, Bendis, you got me a little, with 2 Iron Man, really? 2 Iron Man books? Okay, I'll give you benefit of the doubt. You've been very entertaining in the past. You got my interest. I'm really digging the individual titles. Vision, Howard the Duck, Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange. Just an individual dealing with whatever they deal with. They have even the Patsy Walker one. It was just fun. I mean, it was almost like ground level. I think after Secret Wars, I might be a little cosmic played out. I mean, you've done pretty much everything with the for cripe's sake, you killed off the 3-headed guy who was like the ultimate authority outside of Lee and Kirby in the Marvel Universe. What else can you do? Yeah, I mean, he's gone, baby. And
we did have Eternity show up in the Silver Surfer.
Yeah. And, unless that could be something too, maybe they need to get back and maybe re-explore what's left. Future things going on. But I'm really digging the ground level things. It's almost like Spider-Man in the 70s when he was more of a based hero, in New York, not somebody swinging around the world running multi-billion-dollar companies. Not that I'm not enjoying that, but I'm just saying, I don't know. The team books to me, again, maybe in a couple months I'm going to go, oh, crap, I screwed up. I should have picked up Avenger Team West, Harlem, Upper East Side, as opposed to, not ignoring it. But, and again, with this crossover.
That's a good thing, a Marvel Ultimate, though.
Yes. And with this crossover coming up, again, I'm not biting it. It just doesn't look interesting. And maybe it's because I haven't read anything about it. That's the number one thing. If I read about it in previews, that means somebody somewhere has dropped the ball, because usually I'm geeking on it way before previews even comes out. That's all I got to say about that.
I think one of the problems is we are now in preview overload. And I don't go out of my way to watch new movie trailers. I don't go out of my way to watch all the new.
Oh, I just watched an Ultraman 2016. Oh, that's going to be fun. If it makes it here. It might just be a Japan one. But
because there's just so much of, oh my gosh, you can't believe what's coming out.
Come back, Doctor Strange.
And I know it's very carefully planned. They release this information, to Entertainment Weekly, and this to The View, and this to this news, and this to this newspaper. But it's too much information.
Too much information.
So that it all kind of blurs.
Especially when Duran song in there, did you?
Especially when the information comes out 3 months before the comic hits. You're kind of, and it's why I follow creators instead of, that stuff. But it's sensory overload. Marvel and DC are just flooding the market now. One of the reasons they don't no longer call it the New 52 at DC is they're putting out 90 books a month. And Marvel's matching them. It's just, there's too much of it. And when we talk sales at a future date, I think it's one of the things that's actually depressing the across the line sales, so that, well, why should I buy a Captain America comic when Captain America is going to be in 4 Avengers books and in this and in that, and I'll buy this. Whereas over at DC, I don't know if they've got a new crossover coming because I don't care. There are rumors that all of the New 52 books that are still around and have hit issue 50 are going to end with issue 52 and start over again. And it's, oh my God, stop it. Stop it, stop it, stop it, stop it.
Do you think this is a good place to mention that next podcast we're going to be talking about the Star Wars movie? So if you haven't seen it, see it. Otherwise, we're going to be like doing major league spoilers.
We have a request, by the way.
We do?
Yes, so next week, John Davis has said, I think you guys need to have a civil and gentlemanly discussion on the topic of spoilers.
Oh, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, let's do it now.
Well, that's not much of a spoiler.
Next week, almost an hour into this show. But I sent you on opposite sides of the Force Awakens issue. And when I say civil and gentlemanly, I mean steel chairs and falcons count anywhere. Personally, I avoided any info on the movie. I wanted to let my eyeballs and ears to experience everything for the first time in the theater, just like back in the day. It's one of the reasons why I don't watch trailers and I don't read preview stuff and I don't do that. But if I accidentally see a spoiler, I am not going to lose my mind and start yelling and screaming. There are people on Facebook who have proudly stated that they have defriended, which is a stupid word, people they've known for years because they put up a spoiler to Star Wars.
Well, I think you don't have to be an asshole about it. I mean,
yeah, if
there are guys,
the thing, your friendship, maybe you didn't have a very
There's
good
also guys that I know that just love to, as soon as they watch Walking Dead, oh, I can't believe Rick bought it. And I'm like, wow, that is an asshole thing to do. You could just say, hey, wow, this week's Walking Dead was amazing. Spoilers below. And then go into Rick bought it. But you don't have to start out that, because first of all, if I didn't want to know that, just by reading that sentence, it's too late because you put it in your first frickin' sentence. And then, oh, it's my Facebook. I can do what I want. I don't know why you're mad at me. No, you know why we're mad at you, because you're being an asshole. You got your little chubby happy because you got the reaction everybody wanted. Matter of fact, the one person in question that did that, I haven't even seen him on Facebook since he did that. And it was whatever the last major death was in Walking Dead. I'm not watching the series. I'm waiting for it on Netflix. So by the time it comes out, I'll probably have forgotten it anyways. But, I mean, yeah, you want to talk about it? Fine. Say, guys, I'm going to talk about Star Wars below. Give me a chance to skip the post. One thing nice about Facebook, it doesn't show all the comments. And, I've been biting my tongue at work because I know there's people who haven't seen Star Wars that want to. So I told them what I said in my last review. If you like Star Wars, see it. And I'm going to alter what I said last time. I said, if you don't like it, don't. But a buddy of mine assured me that if you've never, ever seen Star Wars, you can go see this one and enjoy it. You're not going to feel like you're lost out or you're not part of the club. It is what we thought. It's a geek fest for those of us who've been around for, I ain't doing the math, the original Star Wars. And it's also a starting point for those of you who haven't and are invited to join the party.
But into spoilers. Before I saw the movie Citizen Kane, I knew what Rosebud meant.
Thank you, Charles Schultz.
And other people had made I'd seen parodies in different places. It didn't matter to me. The big Star Wars spoiler will be the same as 5 years from now. Remember, Joe, when you saw the first Star Wars, did you know that Obi-Wan Kenobi gets killed?
Nope.
I did. I'd read it in the book and seen it in the comic. It still had an emotional resonance.
I might have.
Because it was such a good scene.
Because one of my first comics that I always blather on and on about, it was Amazing Spider-Man 178, Star Wars #4.
Yep.
And again, I had no idea who Obi-Wan was, so as I'm reading this, it made zero sense to me. But when I went to the theater, I think it totally, I was 12 years old when I saw Star Wars. I was blown away. So I didn't even think, oh, this guy, he's going to die later. Because I made no connection between the comic and whatever.
Well, and to me, the journey to that was what was important. It wasn't the shock value.
Well, at that time, yeah. But how about the next spoiler in Empire Strikes Back? See, I knew about it because I got a copy of the paperback adaptation. And I just read it because I couldn't wait. And I was like, wow. I mean, that was as mind-blowing as seeing it in the theater. And I remember being at school, and the teacher saw I read it, and I said, oh, you're not going to believe the mind-blower. What? Oh, I don't want to tell you because it'll ruin the movie. No, go ahead and tell us anyways. Well, if nobody else cares, Darth Vader's Luke's dad. No, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. It says it right here. I'll show you. I don't believe it. I said, he goes, I will bet you $10 it's not. And somewhere out there, Mr. Falwell, you owe me $10. He never paid up.
I have told this story before. I went and saw Return of the Jedi opening day, back before that was a thing.
I had to wait. I had my high school graduation. My mom wouldn't let me skip.
And I already knew because Marvel had screwed up and sent the comic adaptation magazine to comic shops 2 weeks before
I had a copy of it.
And I bought it and I read it.
I didn't read it because I didn't want to know about it, but did they try to recall those or did they Yeah, and that's why.
They tried to recall them and comic shops were like, screw
we
you.
We sold them already. That was a selling point. And Marvel, they're trying to get them back. Take it and hide it.
But as I came out of the movie with one of my friends, we're walking by the line, and I go, man, that movie was great. And remember at the end of Empire when they said there is another, I couldn't believe that Han Solo is Luke Skywalker's brother. And people were furious with me.
The early asshole Facebook. Mr. Goody Two-Shoes, Cory the Strode.
But it wasn't a real spoiler, such as when I tell you in Star Wars The Force Awakens, we find out that the guy in the mask is actually Zaxxon. That's right, I'm spoiling it now. The big green bunny from the Marvel Star Wars comic is the big bad in The Force Awakens.
You liar. If you're going to make it if you're just going to lie to people about spoilers, at least tell them the truth. It's Jar Jar Binks all over. And that, folks, is spoilers.
You know who's not a spoiler?
Who's that?
These guys, our sponsors. This, as well as every other podcast on the Solitaire Rose Radio Network, is sponsored. And if you want to visit all of our sponsors, go to crazycomics.solitairerose.com. That's the mothership, KRAYZCOMIX.solitairerose.com. It's got our Amazon store. You could go through our Amazon store. The prices are the same as if you just went to Amazon, except they let us wet our beak a little. It's got our other sponsors like Gray's. It's got Dollar Shave Club. And it's got Joe's eBay site. It's got Jen Wicked's Patreon site. You have signed up to be one of her Patreons, right? Well, if you haven't, pause this podcast, go right over there. Be one of her Patreons. That way she can make more art and be on the podcast more often. Go to Joe's eBay site. He throws in free stuff. Now, if you want to support the Solitaire Rose Network, go to our sponsors, including our number one sponsor, our sponsor from day one, DreamHost.com. The best bar none web host in the whole known universe. That's DreamHost.com. If you use the code KRAYZ, KRAYZ, you save $20 off your first year of web hosting, and you need a website. We have a new sponsor, and I'm very happy to have this sponsor, and they are Bombas. Bombas have some of the best socks in the whole known universe. Just go to bombas.gotocloud.org/SF30. You want to know why I'm happy to have Bombas as a sponsor? Not just because their socks are great, but because for every sock you buy, they donate a pair to a homeless shelter or a crisis center. We've got all sorts of podcasts. These podcasts are stories about life, about comics, interviews with people, fiction. Go listen to them all. Listen to Crazy Comics and Stories. And if you're already listening to that, listen to Solitaire Rose Radio. And if you're already listening to that, listen to Solo Joe. He'll put out another one. Really, he will. And our newest podcast, novels.solitairerose.com. It's Cory turning the novels he's written into audiobooks. It's new, it's exciting. Go over there, listen, subscribe. Another way to support us is to subscribe. Subscribe using YouTube, subscribe using Stitcher, subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's Cory Strode at YouTube. That's where we're putting up the podcasts every week. Every time a new podcast comes out, and we put up a new video of it. Give us a good review. Review us on iTunes, review us on Stitcher, review us on anywhere. Pass those links along. Let people know about it. That's how you could support us. I got some people over Christmas who said they wanted to send me something. That's wonderful. It's beautiful. Thank you so much. But if you really want to support the website, you really want to support the podcast, you want to show us the love, you want to show us you love us, tell everyone you know. Go over to Jen Wicked's Patreon site, subscribe to her stuff, go to Joe's eBay site, buy your eBay crap off of him, go to our sponsors and tell them, hey, I heard about this on one of the Solitaire Rose Network podcasts. We love hearing from you. You can email us. We have a new email address at solitaireroseNetwork.gmail.com. We've got a phone number. You can call or leave a message and we will play it on the air. And that number is 952-856-0519. And we're all over the Facebooks. You want to support us? When we put up a new episode, share that link. Let people know. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, wake the kids, shake the dog, let the dog know. Maybe the dog wants to listen. I don't know, when I had a cat, she loved listening to me. She would come out here and she would sit right at my feet while I would record, looking at me, begging for treats. Maybe your dog, your cat, your goldfish, I don't know, if you got a pet monkey. Okay, if you got a pet monkey, I want to hear about it. Give us a call, send us an email. But support us. Do it that way. We love you, so show us some love. Thanks. And there you go. Joe, should we do the hanging at the home?
I don't know. I'm kind of down.
Well, maybe this will make you happy.
I doubt it.
Why are you down? Why are you sad? Why are you depressed?
I have failed one of my eBay buyers.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
What did you do? You no account, dirty, low down some bitch. Some bitch.
I sold a eBay buyer a copy of Mark Silvestri's 2006 convention sketchbook. It was from Image / Top Cow. It was given away at Wizard World Chicago. And I advertised it as near mint. And I'm so verklempt. I'm just going to go right to his message that he sent me when he got it here. Excuse me, choke up. He says,
should I play the sad music?
Play the sad music. He says, "Dear Crazy, I received the comic Saturday, and unfortunately, I saw there are 2 very noticeable scratches on both the front and back covers. So 4 in all, where it looks like some sort of metal scratched away all the color. All 4 of the scratches are about an eighth of an inch in diameter. And I sent back, dear valued eBay customer, I am sorry to hear that. You may return it for a full refund. Let me know what you want to do. And he replied, dear crazy, how about a partial refund instead? Say like $1.50 or so. To which I said, I'll do a bit better, $3. That would bring it in line with a fine copy would sell for. And I also appreciate that you emailed me and let me resolve the issue rather than just leave negative feedback. And he replied, thank you, Joe. I failed. So if you want me to fail you, my eBay is crazy, Krayz, and you can access it at Cory's email. Or actually, the Solitaire Rose Network?
Just head on over to crazycomics.solitairerose.com. You got a link right there. There's also a link to our other sponsors, including our Amazon page, which is currently undergoing some repair. But
and, of course, if you do tell me you listen to this here podcast, I will not only fail you, but I will grab something out of my vast accumulation of crap and give it to you for free.
So hanging at the home.
Yeah, cheer me up.
New Year's Eve at the group home, Joe. Last week, you know how I had the week where I couldn't work? I more than made up for it last week. I slept at the group home 4 out of 6 nights, including a 12-hour shift on New Year's Eve, where I came in and we were short-staffed, and I asked, well, what are we doing for New Year's Eve? And the staff said, oh, yeah, it's New Year's Eve. Nobody really,
Weenie roast.
And, well, they were all the clients were pretty much in their evening routine, which you really don't want to mess up. In the cottage I work in, you do not want to mess up the routine because they have to do what they do every night.
You're right. Chris,
no matter what.
Chris was telling me the place where her mom is, they almost had a riot because they tried to take down the Christmas tree.
Well, this is more, so even if we take them somewhere nice on a weeknight and we don't get back till 9:30, they still have to have their, hour. They still have to have their nightly snack. Even if we took them to like Dairy Queen afterward, they still have to have their soda and their snack, and they still have to have their time to watch Channel 4, and they still have to, do all the things that they do.
Did you hear?
Even if that means they're not going to bed till midnight. New Year's Eve, I come in, and we're just doing the regular routine stuff, and we were shorthanded, so the staff looked kind of burned out. And as everybody sat down at the table for their snack, which takes 90 goddamn minutes, it takes longer for them to eat a little thing of crackers than it does their entire evening meal.
They know. I had put them to bed afterwards.
No, because they could go and watch TV and do whatever they want, but no. So what I did, I had my cell phone and I had my little Bluetooth speaker, and on Underground Garage, on Sirius, they were playing, the kind of music I like, which is a mix of garage bands from the 60s, 70s, and 80s. I just tuned that up, put the little speaker on the table, and we had ourselves a New Year's Eve dance party. And you know what, Joe? I got to tell you, there ain't no party like a group home party, because the party needs to be over by 9 so that everybody has their meds and is in bed by 10. So that was my New Year's Eve. I hear you said something about a riot.
Oh no, yeah, we had a momentary internet web connection. So I told this incredibly moving story that brought everybody in the house to tears. But meanwhile, I didn't know the interwebs was off. So the short version was they had almost a near riot because you were talking about how they like their routines at these homes. Well, Chris's mom's in a similar home, and they went to go take the Christmas tree down, and all the old ladies almost killed the staff. They all wandered up and kind of, as they came up in their walkers and their wheelchair, and they're like, what are you doing with our tree? I said, well, Christmas is over. We got to take it down. Oh, no, you don't. This is our tree. And, oh, it got ugly. After the riot police cleared out and the tear gas went, they did take the tree down, but.
Well, you know what it's time for now?
Hang on. I didn't get that part of the program. What? Oh. Freaking and geeking.
That's right, freaking and geeking. Joe, what are you freaking on?
I'm sore.
At who?
Not at who.
Are you getting ready to take over an abandoned bird sanctuary? Are you that sore?
I would take one with birds in it because it would be fun. But what happened at work, we're having the end of holiday rush as everybody's trying to get home for the holidays. So our business has picked up a bit, whereas normally we're doing like 2,000-3,000 people. We're now upwards of, close to 4. So you go 4,000 times that by 2. That's about how much luggage we had to deal with each and every shift. And I work the PM shift, not the morning shift. And because we're not part of the fancy inline system, that means every piece of luggage has to be put in the machine, has to be taken out of the machine and put on the belt. That's not including if we do happen to have a bag check, which is essentially the machine going, this looks like a bomb. You want to make sure it's not. And, 9 times out of 9, it's a jar of peanut butter. But that's what we do all day. We look for explosives. It's real great. Can you guarantee my bag's going to get on the plane? No, but I will guarantee there's no explosive in it. That's what TSA does. We are human tripwires. Don't ask stupid questions. I am sore, as are most of my crew. Part of it is our supervisor's problem. It was nice of both of them to take the week off. 2 weeks off for one of them. But the one supervisor decided, well, since I'm off and I'm not working these days of the heavy loads, I will let everybody else get off too. So we were down by about a third of what we normally had working. Instead of having 12 to 13 guys working, we had 8. And it was hard, it was long, and I'm 2 days from working. I got 2 days till I have to work, and my back is just killing me, and I'm sore, and I'm cranky. And that's what I'm freaking out. I got nothing else. I mean, I had a pretty good holiday season. I worked both Christmas and New Year's, but I get holiday pay when I do that, so that's cool. Cory, what are you freaking on?
Last week I put in 90 hours between my 2 jobs.
To make up how much time did you lose when you decided to have some emergency surgery?
28 hours.
So 28 minus 90. So you're ahead of the game.
Yes.
Excellent.
But still, by the time I got home Sunday, I felt my eyes were glazed, and I just kind of stared at the TV for a while. I don't know if I remember anything I watched other than, Community funny. Community funny. Hey. Again, my New Year's Eve was spent at the group home, so I was actually asleep by 11 o'clock. I felt like an old man, but it's, hey, I got to be up at 6 a.m. and start passing pills, so I need to get my sleep. So because of that, I also did not get my holiday baking done, so I have to wait to send I send my family baked goods for the holidays, and now they have to wait until,
I'll tell you, Cory's baked goods are good.
I'm learning. I get by.
Even his bacon is good, which is surprising for a guy who's a vegetarian.
Did not get a whole lot of comic book reading done. Didn't get a whole lot of other stuff done. And you know how the quote full-time unquote job has been only giving me 30 hours a week? Well, leading up to Christmas, they're putting out the schedule, and oh look, they're giving me 40 hours a week. Ooh. Oh look, they've given me 40 hours a week again. And the temp agency I'm through, I said, well, it looks like finally they're going to start giving me full-time hours. And, I'm looking for other jobs, but because they're going to give me full-time hours, I can relax a little bit. I don't have to make up as much time at the group home. I don't have to jump on every shift they send me. And then the New Year's Eve day, 10 minutes before the end of my shift, there's a new schedule, and it's back to 30 hours. So I go to my supervisor, and I say, I see that I'm back to only 30 hours a week. Now, what I was told when I was brought on, I was told that once I knew what I was doing and could show that I would handle the calls and do all this, that I would be instated as full-time and moved up to a position much like I had at Cargill. And I want to let you know something. I've seen my numbers. Even with me being out for a week in December, I've taken more calls than anyone else on this client. And the baseline for quality is 90%. Since day one, which would have my learning curve in it, since day one, my quality number is 98%. When, pray tell, will you come through on what you told me? And what I got was, well, the economy is still soft, and blah, blah.
Girls, if you want
talk,
quality,
blah,
give Cory
blah.
Strode a call.
Blah, blah, merger, blah, blah, corporate doublespeak, blah, blah. Cory sent out over 100 resumes this weekend.
Yes. And if you want quality, call Cory.
Damn right. I actually have a letter of recommendation for,
Your mom doesn't count.
No. I have 2 ex-girlfriends who gave me letters of recommendation for certain things. Joe, what are you geeking on?
Let's see. Didn't read comics. Wayne Roger passed away, so we watched a bunch of MASH. Still watching Cheers. I gotta go back to work in 2 days, sore as hell. I am geeking on nothing, which is very rare. But I'm feeling good, so I guess that's something. Cory, what are you geeking on?
I'm looking over the Netflix. And the Netflix has got a whole bunch of new stuff dropping this year.
Oh, they just announced the new Daredevil.
New Daredevil. I guess they've started work on both, they've started work on Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Is that right?
One of them they were having trouble with, but I think you're right. They have started it.
There will be a new season of Arrested Development.
Ooh.
Everybody says that the How to Make a Murderer is really good. If I could get some goddamn time off, I got a whole bunch of really cool TV coming up. The X-Files six episode event starts in a couple of weeks. The TV is looking good. I've got the 13 going on 18, a whole bunch of John Stanley stuff I've never read before. And I don't think I talked about it last week. I did watch the season finale / Christmas episode of Doctor Who.
Who?
Which was incredibly good. It was called The Husbands of River Song, and it was the first time we've seen River Song with the current Doctor, and it was an excellent, excellent episode.
Did you see some of the online, what do you call it, timeline charts trying to explain how her life lived versus how the Doctor's went?
No,
it
because
was very
one of the things,
timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly.
Yeah.
It was fun to read, but wow.
Yeah, that's fan stuff.
No, it wasn't
One of
fan
the
stuff. It might have been BBC.
Because one of the things that we've learned is that the current Doctor has been the Doctor for over 200 years, and that maybe the Matt Smith Doctor was the Doctor for a couple hundred years as well.
Oh, he did 100 years on that Christmas planet before it changed.
But they've done a lot of, we've left huge holes for books and radio plays and whatever else we want.
Radio plays are big. There's a radio play they announced just recently where, I can't think of the actress that does River Song, but she's going to be working with the 8th Doctor. I think it's in this month's previews, actually.
On New Year's Day, we got a new episode of Sherlock, which if you have not watched Sherlock, go to your Netflix, watch the Sherlock. All
right, I'm on my way. Okay, I'm back. Oh, you are so right.
And the New Year's Day episode was kind of the bridge between season 3, which just ended, and season 4, which we have no idea when it will ever come out, but it is coming out at some point. And comic-wise, I talked about how I got this huge stack of Archie digests. And for the longest time, I didn't read Archie because, it's kid stuff. But one of the things I like about it is the stories are short, they're well put together, they're not clever, they're comforting. Reading these Archie digests is like having mashed potatoes and gravy. It may not be great, but it sure kind of makes you feel warm and fuzzy, and it's nice comfort food.
It might burn your tongue.
And it was nice to have, as I was working so many hours, if I had trouble falling asleep, I had the digest. I could just turn on a light and read a few stories. I'm really looking forward to diving into the stuff I got. And I also have started reading the Drawn and Quarterly, the great big Drawn and Quarterly anniversary book. And I will talk more about it later. I got it over the summer, but didn't have time to read it. But it's kind of the best of the publishing company, Drawn and Quarterly, since their existence, with a lot of independent cartoonists and artists and stuff. So I got a lot of good reading now that the holidays are over and maybe things will kind of throttle back a little bit. I've got stuff where I could just sit on the couch.
And the crapper with Archies.
Keep warm and have good funny books to read.
And you're going to have to. I guess it's finally going to dip below 0 in a week.
Really?
Yep, just in time for maybe in time for the Vikings game next Sunday, which will be, by the time this podcast drop, already done. So it'll be Monday, but it's Sunday and they just won. Oh, my head hurts again.
Well, believe it or not, kids, you've listened to us blather on about funny books for an hour and a half.
With only one internet drop.
That's right. And as we say every week, the comic we like the least, we still like better than the comic that you like the most. Joe?
Schools train people to be ignorant with style. They give you the equipment that you need to be a functional ignoramus. American schools do not equip you to deal with things like logic. They don't give you the criteria in which to judge between good and bad in any medium or format. And they prepare you to be a usable victim for the military-industrial complex that needs manpower. Frank Zappa. Cory, hit my music.